Right. So Captain Tyler. Yeah, first came across it on YouTube back when uh, I think that Captain Tyler, the English dub, is still available on YouTube. But back then, I also another series which was available on YouTube was Legend of the Galactic Heroes. So I kind of watched them one after the other, and I guess it sort of seemed to me at the start a little bit that um, Tyler was a little bit like a parody of Young Wenli or something from A Legend of
Yeah,
the Galactic
yeah.
Heroes.
Like when you contrast this to say, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, like Captain Tyler does come off as a bit of like a Yang Lee type character.
Right.
I mean, it can feel like that. The thing is, if you take the Soyokaze and all its crew out of it, Tyler can feel a little bit like that, and you can tell it is going for like a sort of similar feel and worldview to those like epic space operas like Legend of the Galactic Heroes. I mean, it uses classical music quite a few times in the soundtrack for various scenes.
I would say that the biggest difference to me, other than the tone, of course, because Tyler is obviously a comedy, is that like it was more concerned with like the goings on of one ship, um, whereas with I mean there was one big battle where like um, Tyler was commanding a large fleet or whatever you want to call it, but for the most part it's just him and his ship, whereas in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, like in Legend of Galactic Heroes, it's like you got like your flagship and then like your fleet. And Legend of the Galactic Heroes is more concerned with like the broad overview of the war, while this is a bit more like, oh, what's the adventures of this one? What are the people on this one specific ship doing?
Right. So I guess another one of the things which came, I mean, this didn't really occur to me that much because it seemed obvious to me that Tyler was just lucky. But I guess one of the most constant discussions about this show is whether Tyler is a genius or just a lucky fool. So I guess let's start. Let's get a vote. I guess at the start. George, do you think he was a lucky fool or a genius?
I would say he's mostly a lucky fool. I guess he's a genius in terms of he knows how to read people, but other than that, for the most part, he's just there out of pure luck.
How about you, Heraclius?
Yeah, I'd agree. And this is sort of one of the bits of the show that most surprised me. I'd seen such discussion around before, and I'd sort of assumed because of the existence of such discussion that there was almost certainly going to be a method to his madness, and that there would be like some real intelligence behind him. And that's sort of not the case. He's kind of Tyler is kind of the type of dope that most of his strategies involve running away, which is often quite sensible when they are outgunned 10 to 1. But things just so happen to work out oftentimes, and there's absolutely no planning behind it. Like there's an example where they quite intelligently managed to uh, get uh, get close to a sun as another ship is chasing them, and bait that ship into shooting at them, hitting the sun, and a little solar flare manages to destroy that ship. And when asked about it, Tyler goes like, "Yeah, I was just running.
Oh yeah,
I was running."
I can add one thing. The one that you mentioned about closing in on the ship. That to me is they're basically referencing the Legend of Galactic Heroes. I think its title
Yeah,
is.
that. Yeah, because it's like in Legend of Galactic Heroes, there's a scene where like Yang Li, I think he's against who's the Gal Wolf guy, the blonde guy who's is it Mitten? I forgot his name.
Mittermeier.
Um, yeah, Mittenmeyer. Like he does that trick where he's like, "Oh, time to pay him back," and they drop bombs into like a sun, and there's a giant like inferno like rises up. I'm like, "Oh, that's a nice callback."
So, how about you, Biogundam? Do you think he's a fool, a lucky fool, or a genius?
So originally, I was kind of leaning towards like Genius, and then as I watched the show move on and like the OVAs, the issue is we haven't like got access to the books that this is originally based on, and so it's kind of hard to see where actually everything goes. I mean, even the OVAs themselves leave on a massive cliffhanger. I would say I'm leaning towards like Lucky at this point in time. However, I will say that he's a lot more clued on and skilled than he might originally appear. But I would say I'm leaning towards mostly Lucky. But I would say in certain areas and in certain circumstances, he's a lot more clued on and talented in ways that you might not at first thought.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Lucky Fool as well. So I would say that this series has mostly been forgotten. Um, and and one of the things that you mentioned that like most of the source material is not available. I guess it's sort of a similar situation to Nadesico, which I believe that the OVAs just end on a cliffhanger midway, um, and the reason the fact that there isn't a satisfying conclusion, I think, might have something to do with the fact that the series has been forgotten. I feel like by most.
Uh, I don't know how much that has to do with it because the anime ends at a very good stopping point. I was actually somewhat surprised that it wasn't like an anime original ending or wasn't like a stopping point for the original
Light novel.
novels.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you look up the Wikipedia, you'll see the story goes on. Like based on the description of the titles, right? I'm assuming that like the anime covers maybe up to like volume 6 and maybe a couple of the side story shit.
Hmm.
Because you've got the main series and then like some of the side story stuff, and I'm my gut tells me they probably covered like most of the actual novel and maybe threw in a couple of side stories. Um, but yeah, like if you read some of the descriptions, there's one that says the irresponsible President Tylor, and then there's one that says like there's a series called the Irresponsible Free Kingdom. So I guess he becomes like the galactic president, and then after that, like the local galactic warlord. So I would have loved to see that animated.
Well, it would probably go something like episode 2, where he has a terrorist attack and he accidentally foils a terrorist attack out of his sheer luck and he becomes the president.
Right, right. Okay, then I guess we could explain the
Let's
story.
go, Tyler.
Yeah, we could explain the story a little bit. So, um, there's a war which is about to start between two factions, the United Space Force or whatever, which is the Earth, and I believe some other planets as well, with humans on them, and
The
the Raugon Empire on the other hand, which is basically I don't know,
The
fantasy.
alien space elves shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and the protagonist is with the humans, obviously. And he decides to join the army, the military rather, uh, to because he thinks that it's going to be an easy job, leading to a comfortable life or something. An easy job that pays well, essentially, with little work. But as soon as he joins, a war starts with the Ralgon Empire. And he somehow ends up getting promoted up the ranks, to become a captain of a ship, um, the which is crewed by, um, I
A
guess,
ragtag,
yeah,
a ragtag bunch of misfits.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. All right. Um, so it's not exactly episodic, though. I I would say,
Most
I would
yeah.
say there's a little bit of episodicness nature to it, but there is like this overarching plot. You know, you have the stuff with like Azaleen, you know, his relationships with the crew, that admiral that he befriends and stuff like that. There is some side story shit going on, but like for the main plot, it's pretty consistent. Like it's just the progression of the war, and also the higher ups trying to get rid of Captain Tyler and the Soyokaze.
right, and every time they end up failing, and that's why it's funny, actually.
Or Captain Tyler gets caught in like more brave heroics, like wiping out an entire fleet, then wiping out another entire fleet.
Right, right. Okay. I would say that I probably enjoyed the first half more than the second half. I would say that the point at which a certain spy starts. I don't know. I just felt like the whole AI thing, with her realizing that she has feelings and or whatever was a bit on the nose. And
I
yeah.
I mean that's what the show. I mean, did you see the first episode where he seduces another AI?
Yeah, he basically seduces the military recruitment AI.
Well, at least that didn't last that long. That was over and done with, pretty fast. And I would,
Yeah, he had a pump and dump.
yeah. I I also didn't like, Azalin that much. It just seemed. I mean, I guess it's a comedy, so you just have to accept it. But so basically, the empress, on of the enemy side just easily falls in love with Captain Tyler as well, obviously because he's the
Yeah,
Yeah,
protagonist.
it's a
Oh,
bit. It does feel a tiny bit forced. I think it's cute, but like as Heracula said earlier, I was talking to before. It was never going to go anywhere, and it's mostly played for like laughs or like ooh.
I mean, of
yeah,
all the things, that was one of the ones that least bothered me, because like this Empress Girl is like clearly very isolated from everyone else. So it's quite understandable.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
And,
that
and and in fact, that kind of ties into like her character arc where she's trying to learn more about responsibility and stuff like that. And you see her like during those like Railgon meetings she has like her advisor, I think it's advisor Wang, that the fucking slimy. He looks like fucking Alvin Jafar. Like that's the first thing that pops in my head. It's fucking
uh,
Jafar from Aladdin.
oh
yeah.
yeah, her prime minister is constantly scheming to have her assassinated or some such thing.
Hmm. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
basically she's kind of like she's basically surrounded by retainers that either like indulge her or retainers that are trying to undercut her and undermine her authority.
mhm.
And when it comes to the Wang shit, I don't have any confirmation for this, but I have a suspect I suspect that he is responsible for like Asleen's father's death, and probably yeah, like
Yeah,
I deeply suspect he was probably responsible for Asleen's father's death because like Asleen's like I think like 16, 15 in the show,
yes,
like she's actually
yes.
fairly young.
I mean, I'd believe it.
mm. so yeah, I mean, um, every basically at some point every female character on the ship is likes Tyler, but I don't know. if he's just too dense or he just doesn't care or what.
Well, I wouldn't say he's too dense. I think he kind of knows that they like him, but he's just like, nah, I'm only going with the one girl, which is Yuriko. Everyone else is just on the wayside.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Like I even think in the novels, it's talked about, or in OVAs, it's talked about how he actually has a thing for Yuriko.
Hmm.
Well, even in some of the episodes when Yuriko's asks, "Oh, hey, what should I? Do you have advice to bring? Oh, yeah, you should marry me."
And she just slaps him for it.
The worst episode by far, in my opinion, was the one where w- uh, the two twins, who again I don't think really get any character development. I mean, they get their own
No, they
episode.
don't.
Yeah.
They're just there for like fan service and threesomes. So
Yeah, and somehow they still get their own episode for some reason where they become pilots or whatever.
Well, yeah,
I didn't mind that episode.
I liked that one actually
Yeah.
because you're focused on the one guy who's mainly responsible for fighter pilot training, and he's of course naturally overprotective because it's a dangerous field. He's very scared, and apparently these two are like daughters of some fairly higher up guy in the military. So feels very he doesn't want to let them do this. And he only reluctantly agrees, and he thinks halfway through that his actions have led them to their deaths. But of course, they turn out to be fine and to have unexpected skills and talents.
I found it a bit weird that Admiral Hanna would be the father of those two girls because he seemed much older, too old almost, to be their father. Right.
Young wife, I guess.
Yeah. I guess she died too. There was one good moment in that episode where like Yuriko, because she thinks, or rather, she, they basically think that Tyler has got a good eye for people because he's able to predict that the two twins would be good pilots.
Mm.
So
yeah,
you,
yeah. Like I would say that one of Tyler's main strength, and this is going on why I think like yeah he is lucky because you know with any military commander luck plays a part of it. But I do believe some of his real strengths of Tyler is that he's really good at people management. Like he's insanely good at management and cultivating loyalty among his troops, which is actually fairly good if you're a military commander.
mm,
Well, not just a military commander. I would say if you're a leader in general, doesn't matter military or so on. If you have good loyalty, if your subordinates are loyal, and you're doing a great job.
right, right. Yeah. So the good moment that from that episode, even though I didn't like it, was when Yuriko basically asks him, so what is my hidden talent? Given that you have an eye for people, and he's like, well, you should become my wife.
My wife.
Life in the military doesn't suit you. You should just marry me. Um, yeah,
Get in the kitchen.
essentially, yeah. Another episode which I thought was like too much of a go girl kind of episode was um the one where Yuriko has a conflict with the other what's her name again? Let me see. What's the other girl on the
Oh yeah, her. You know she's wearing like
Yeah.
high heels and all that shit.
right? Let me see if I can find her name. Kyon Kyon Wa Kim. Kim. Let's just call her Kim. I liked her character design, but yeah, again she doesn't get any that much character development. Again, I guess that episode was supposed to be character development. the episode where she fights with.
I do appreciate the show trying to flesh out some of these like characters and stuff and members of the crew. I mean, I think it's great, but the problem is these characters aren't really that complex to begin with.
No, in fact, since you can't hardly remember 90% of the cast members' name, you just know them by their appearance or their one note personality.
Right. It's all about Tyler, I guess. And
Yeah, Tyler's the great man of action. So
the other characters are just supposed to, for the most part, play the straight man to Tyler's
yeah, like
antics.
Yamato, I fucking love that dude.
Right.
Oh, he's great.
Hmm. Yeah. Long live the whatever it's called, the UPF or whatever it's not UPF. And anyway, has any of you listened to the English dub?
Yes, the English
I've
dub's
not.
pretty good.
Yeah, agreed. I personally prefer the English dub over the sub, but and I because it's a comedy and nothing too serious. I don't really mind that. Maybe I don't get everything. I tried sometimes to look at the subtitles and see if they changed that much, but not really. Fortunately.
I mean, back in the '90s, not all dubs were like completely like localized, so I guess Tyler was lucky in that regard. It didn't get like completely butchered or localized.
Yeah. I don't know whether it was just a torrent which I was using, but sometimes the lip syncing was really off. Was kind of bad, but I guess I kind of got used to it after a couple of episodes after I stopped paying attention to it. Um, all right. So, um, yeah, I guess before we started recording, we were talking about East Tyler, quote unquote based, um, or not. Um,
Well, it's because we had like Captain Chad. I was wondering, is this going to be like our Captain based or not?
Well, as far as Tyler's general philosophy, Tyler's general philosophy is more or less one of indolence and slight preference towards hedonism. And that's generally how he works as a captain. He's the type of character who he does not particularly plan ahead. Everything he does is very much spur of the moment. He is predisposed to constantly trusting others and trusting others around him and allowing them to let loose, which can have positive effects on his crew, and does indeed have positive effects on his crew. And you get to see a lot of hijinks because of that. But overall, it's easy to see how in a show that was not this show, Tyler's behavior would easily get them all killed.
yes.
Yeah, like if this was like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, he'd be dead within like 30 seconds of a battle.
Yes, and also nobody on the Soyokaze is like genuinely bad, right?
Hmm.
So he
Yeah,
can,
they're like all pretty
Yeah.
cool.
yeah, even if he lets them go loose, they will only go so far. Like
Yeah, like I think the only like quote unquote bad people are like the Marines, but they're just like kind of rough around the edges, very boyish, very like hoorah type people. They just want to have a good time.
Yeah.
right. I mean, his philosophy, I think, yeah, that's sort of the quote unquote a resolution to the last conflict when he tells his crew to do what you want the way uh, that you want to, which sort of echoes back to the first order, which he gave them to basically do whatever they want essentially from the very start. So it's sort of I don't know. I guess it's the whole series is sort of making fun of Japanese militarism or something, especially with Yamato's character, maybe.
Yeah, like Yamato, like he reminds me of like a fucking World War II like what Japanese like if you read some of the shit they were doing in like World War II for like Japanese military training,
Oh,
like
in an
okay, no,
episode
you go on.
Yeah, in episode one, it's flat out, and this somewhat threw me for a loop for what to expect from the show. Between Mifune and Yamamoto, the admirals, Yamamoto is literally just the historical Isoroku Yamamoto, and Mifune is arguing the points of, like, let's say, the Tojos and the other far more optimistic generals and admirals, which ultimately led them to disaster in World War II. And I did find that kind of funny. And one of the other things to notice is, despite theoretically being a Earth Federation type deal, the United Earth Space Forces, their flag is literally just the Japanese flag with like a little star on the
Yeah,
side.
it's like a tomato or something.
Yeah, I was kind of under the impression that um, that the United Space Force or whatever it's called is a military kind of dictatorship or something. Well, at least we are not
I
that clued.
I don't think we're supposed to take away that. I feel like it's just supposed to be a wink and a nod thing of like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like Japan was sort of like leading all this, and it's easier to also to like what you already know. In that
Yeah,
case.
it's similar to Gunbusters, right? We have a United Earth Federation, and they're all Japanese.
Hmm.
Yeah, but, I mean, when it comes to names, there are some English names like Anderson. Uh,
Yes, it's clearly not all Japanese. It's just sort of like very Japanese flavored.
right, right. The first time I watched, and obviously I watched the dub, so no subtitles. I was under the impression I misheard um, Tyler's um, middle name as Wacky, so I thought it was Justy Wacky Tyler, but but no, it's actually the Japanese name, Wacky. I don't know if it's I doubt that it's a it's there to mislead us or anything like that. Okay, what else is there to say? I guess oh, there's the reference. There's the glasses at the end, which then s- I don't know. Like I've only heard. I've never seen a good source on this. That the glasses the sunglasses which he wears at the end in the finale um are are then copied in what's it called
Mm.
again?
Hey, go and log on.
Yeah,
Long.
in Gurren Lagann.
I feel like that had to be the an inspiration. I feel like it had to be the people.
Oh,
I mean, it was a
oh,
guy.
yeah. Also, like a reminder, like back in the 90s and 80s, like anime studios were pretty fucking incestuous with their influences and all that shit. Like even today, like the whole industry is very incestuous. All right, so in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the people that worked on this did not know people in Gainax or some of these other studios or through the grapevine. Like you cannot underestimate how incestuous the industry is in Japan.
Heraclius, were you going to say that there was some connection? Uh,
Yeah, pretty much. It's. I mean, I have nothing but speculation, but I have no reason to believe that it's not the case.
I see, I see. Okay. Mm, w- what did you think of the animation and the artwork, um, George?
I thought it was
Uh,
pretty decent, pretty
I
good for a
thought
'90s show.
I'd say the animation is fine for what it is. The art style, I like it. I also like how each of the characters look different. They're not like, oh, it's one character in the background. They all have their different, unique, well, I guess they have their own unique appearances, which I really like.
I see. I think that most of the time when the characters look goofy, it's on purpose. But I'm pretty sure that there are some moments when it's just off model. Like there's like a few shots where Yuriko kind of looks like she has got Down syndrome or something, and I don't think that was on purpose.
I mean, if you want characters that look like they have Down syndrome, look at some of the episodes of the original Macross. Oh
Oh
god.
god. Don't
Oh
fucking remind me. Dude, I was talking to Full Menace about this and we just had a discussion about it. Like, there's a scene with Miria and Max, right? And there's like a scene where she looks like she's out of like the fucking, the famous art which
yeah, I know
screams like
that's
anything.
what you're talking about. You can also tell they have a different animator because normally she has those lipstick, but in one episode she just has a flat mouth.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
Um.
it's like, oh no.
So in terms of character design, I I mean I think it's mostly generic 90s stuff. Um.
I mean, I really liked. You could say that it's generic '90s stuff, and you're technically accurate. But I personally really like all these style of character designs, and found them all, yeah, that they worked well.
I guess so. What about the backgrounds? Did those seem unique in any way, or were they just generic cyberpunk or whatever? Um,
Space opera. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like Gundam or like Legend of the Galactic Heroes and shit like that. Like the backgrounds. I mean, it looks pretty. It's pretty and cool, but they do quite a few of it does seem like typical. Uh, I did like the I think they did put a bit more effort into the backgrounds, especially like some of the stuff we have like these like weird spinning galaxy things in the background and shit. Or
yeah,
like these little planets.
yeah,
I thought the background was pretty cool. Kind of gave this idea of like there's this bigger, wider galaxy out there.
yeah.
Waiting to be explored.
I think probably the most interesting looking stuff was in the city. In the cities, I don't think it's the same city. They're in different places.
No, they go to different cities. Like there's one where it's like very like cyberpunkish, and there's one where it's very kind of like tropical, like not exactly like what's the word for it? It's like this weird blend of like nature and civilization.
Right. Like for example, the building where Admiral Hanai is some weird modernist kind of building.
Yeah,
The caretaking of all people's home or whatever. I think the laziest stuff in terms of designs was to do with the aliens. Let's just
yeah. They kind of look like generic space elves, and like this spaceship design. Japan has this weird tendency to have like these organic like spaceship shit. Like you'll see it in like Outlanders and all this stuff like they and like this weird like techno organic. Like imagine like the Tyranids but as spaceships, and like the Ralgon. In terms of like aesthetics, they kind of remind me of like Arabia or like the Persian Empire. Like they have like turbans and stuff and like cloaks.
See,
Um,
I just view them as sort of like more fantastical fantasy because like you've got some of the like some of the female admirals who are basically dressed up in robe bikinis, and everyone just treats it as normal and stuff like that. Uh, Honestly, it's one of those things where the designs and the basic surrounding lore in Tyler are good enough. They are better than like 99% of like any modern isekai or fantasy or sci-fi or whatever show, and I would happily watch a actually serious show that sort of set in this universe.
right. Yeah, I would agree that like if the the female uh, alien outfits were Like, are we supposed to take this seriously at all, or not? A little bit. But yeah. Um. Okay. What else is there to say? Do any of you have any favorite episode or episodes? Uh,
I have one. My favorite episode would probably be the one where it's New Year's and they get trapped on the, I guess you would call it the ghost dimension. And what basically happened is the crew gets haunted, and the ghost, well, so the gist of it is the ghost that the captain, since that ship is notorious for being the worst ship on the planet, they get demoted to the most, like, sector where there's no action, so the crew gets so bored they end up, you know, shooting the bucket. So the captain got so guilty he became a vengeful spirit. And what basically happened is, since the Tylor crew is so irresponsible, the ghost is just like, "Oh, is this from the?" So he basically gets
Is
so
this all?
yeah, gets so disappointed, just like, "All right, you, you're worse than my crew. Here you go. I'm gonna leave you alone."
No, he like specifically says to them, "You're the captain. You're the captain." It's like, how can I torment someone? This is irresponsible. And that's at the end of it. Everything up until then is like very serious, spooky stuff going on, and it's really freaky. And I have to give credit to the animators in terms of the way they design anything, the backgrounds and the look and the feel. It's very out there.
Yeah, like it gets kind of a bit psychedelic and shit and esoteric. It's a pretty good episode.
so, do you guys have any other episodes you want to talk about, or should we move on? Okay, let's move on then. The the OVAs. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to watch them, but I think you should probably on. I don't know. The first time I watched them, I was kind of disappointed because they have a completely different tone to the TV
Yeah, they're
series.
like a lot more serious, and for some of the OVAs, like the design for the characters is slightly different. Like characters look a bit more paler. Faces look really different. Like that's what I was watching, like the later OVAs. Like I noticed immediately, like the characters are a bit more paler, and the designs are like a little bit off.
Right. Um. Yeah. But I think uh, after a few like after like my expectations I mean after having watched it once that then I thought well basically when rewatching Tyler I thought well I mean it's fine, you know, there's comedy, like the story is self-contained enough in the TV series itself, and the OVAs are just there to add some depth to the characters, or something like that, to get to know a little bit more about the crew in particular, because the series, as we discussed, is mostly just about Tyler, and the OVS, if I'm not mistaken, are a little bit more about the crew. Is that right?
Yeah, most of them are like what Aslene's doing, what Jet Guy's doing. Fleshes them out a bit more.
Yeah, but there's not that much comedy. Um,
No, like it's like even in the end of the OVAs, like they talk about like this massive conspiracy theory and third parties, and it gets kind of serious. And I think a guy almost like dies or get like yeah, I think Yamato almost dies or gets hospitalized and shit. So
so what about I believe that after the OVA series there was also a movie, isn't that right? Or was it another longer OVA or something where they blow
no,
up?
there was like the OVA that was long because it's either split the two episodes or it was like all together. And then there's the rest of the OVAs, which is side story stuff. And then there's like the Christmas party, and then next couple of episodes talk about this like conspiracy theory
Yeah,
and shit.
because it's been a while, but I recall that there was a long episode thing where like they blow up the Soyokaze.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was at the end.
Yeah, and I believe Tyler also gets tortured, and it's not like played for a gag or something. Or maybe I'm misremembering that he gets whipped. Do you remember that? No.
That's the first OVA, and the last OVA is when the ship blows up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyhow, like, yeah, and it all ends on a cliffhanger, basically just like the like so sort of like the Nadesico movie. Not really, but anyway, it feels a little bit
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you get the impression that like in the books it goes further. I mean, in the books it sounds like he becomes like the president and then like the local galactic warlord. So, um, I'd be curious to see where it goes from there. I mean, if I ever get to Japan and like find these books, I'll definitely like I guess share what happens next. But as far as we're concerned, like Suikazes blows up. There's this weird conspiracy theory out, and GG kids.
Right. I guess the thing which I'm most curious of is whether there would be whether what the tone is, whether the author is able to maintain um, a light-hearted mood with all this stuff.
I don't know. Like the OVA is starting getting quite a bit more serious. Like especially at the ending part. Like it did get a bit more serious.
Right, right. I think if it became serious, though, it would become a little bit more generic because a little bit less unique because I thought that what made this one a little bit unique was that it was a comedy. Um, um, uh, other than that, nothing too special about it. Um, really. Um, okay, going back to the story of the TV series itself. Did you guys feel like it was plausible that the crew would turn to uh, Justice, sorry, Taylor's side and like go out of their way to try to save him and stuff?
Yes and
Say,
no.
well, I would say not so much die hard loyal, but I don't know. I can't really see, especially Tyler's personality, 80 or not. He seems to be a likable dude. So I don't see how you would hate him.
N- and-
Yeah, and
mm,
it also seems like in the show, right? Like there's a difference between being loyal to like the space forces and then being loyal to Captain Tyler.
right, right. I think from what I recall, the moment so basically the way that things went was that Harumi, the spy, releases a virus or something into the ship, and Tyler has to go with the Ralgon in order to
He basically sacrifices himself so they can get cured.
yeah and
Essentially, what
yeah,
happens.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's it's after that point, right, that um, uh, maybe after that point there is sort of a change in the crew's view of the captain. That's how I read it anyway. But again, it's not like the characters change that much, so it's a bit hard to say. Like if you change the order of the episodes, the characters just act the same. They still think Tyler is an idiot, essentially. Even if they do risk their life to save him a couple of times, I think. Um, okay, what?
I mean, even in military history, like if the people under your command like you enough, I mean, they're very willing to look over your flaws, like
Hmm.
whatever weaknesses you have or personality quirks or whatever. You'd be quite surprised of how many people will be like, "Yeah, this guy's a bit of a dick, but we're gonna save him anyway."
Yeah. But by the way, in the opening, wasn't there some weird live action thing like they show a camera?
Yes.
What's that about?
Um, I think it was just doing. I think they just did it because it looked cool.
I see. I
Yeah,
I see.
Like I don't think there's anything really too deep about it. They just feel like, oh, let's make a cool opening, and this looks cool. I don't think you need to make like a 20 hour analysis video on it.
Right. I was wondering whether they did it actually because they ran out of money or something, but probably not. It's the opening, so they probably did it on purpose. Um. Okay. What else is there to say? I guess the music. They use some classical music here and there appropriately. Other than that, nothing. The soundtrack is just okay. Um. I,
Yeah, aside from the opening.
hmm. Right. Um. Okay. Um. Okay. So, anything else? Do you guys have anything else to add? To Captain Tyler?
Mm, I would say my favorite side characters that I really like are the Marines. Even if you can't really tell apart from one another, I just love how they're best way to describe them. Just imagine a construction crew on a military brigade.
Yeah, they're easy to like, and it's easy to they very much fit the setting, and it's also easy to I guess sympathize with them and understand where they're coming from. And
Oh yeah,
they're
like I also really like the fucking Marines. Like this, the scenes with the Marines is just great. Like they're just very boisterous, very like whoop whoop. It's like you can't hate these guys. Like yeah, they're a bit rough around the edges, but it's just like they're fucking fun guys to be around. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's easy to see how they'd be why they would take well to Tyler's rule, because you've got rule sticklers like Yuriko, and Tyler comes around and just goes, "No, you guys keep doing what you're doing." And they're like, "Hell yeah!"
I see. Hmm. Um. hmm. So apparently, according to the wiki, um, the character of Tyler is a cartoon version of Hitoshi Taira, the lazy protagonist of the 1962 live-action movie Japan's Irresponsible Age, who
Hmm.
was played by a comedian. This popular satire on Japan's salaryman culture featured a feckless individual who always managed to come out on top, advancing up promotional ladders when accidents befell his superiors, or lucking into important business information simply by malingering and goofing off. Yeah, so
Hmm.
it does sound similar, and that's according to the Anime Encyclopedia or whatever. So
Hmm.
yeah, take it
That
as you
might be
will.
something to check out.
Yeah,
What is it called again?
it's called. Let me check. Japan's Irresponsible Age. Age. That's AGE.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah,
I'll put that on my watch list.
yeah. It has got the word irresponsible in it, so it um could be a nod to that.
Almost certainly, yes. Museki nin is not exactly a common word in Japanese titles, in my experience.
Right,
Yeah, I mean, if this was made now, the title would be like, "Oh, this space captain is very horribly irresponsible," and I don't know. I can't think of anything else. I'm too tired.
Uh,
right, and they go out of their way to use call him irresponsible, in the series as well. Um,
Yeah, they call him a responsible son.
right. Okay.
somehow I can see that.
So, the most important question. Who is best girl, George?
Mm, I would. I would probably have to go with the Android.
Oh, I hated her.
Okay, you're banned.
um. So what did you like about the android?
I don't know. Just she seemed, although aside from her being devoted to Tyler, unreasonably, I might add, She seems to be in control and kind of just cool.
No, she has that sophisticated older woman vibe to her,
Yeah,
while
she's got
not
like the
while
MILF look. She's got a little bit of the MILF look.
Yep.
while not being unapproachable, and being very motherly, in her own way. Which, I mean, none of these characters are particularly complex, but the
Or
one
deep.
thing you can say about is that they're all likable. I mean, we're talking about like waifu choices, like amongst the crew, and it's like I'm not sure I can pick because it's not like anyone stands out more than the others, but all of them are like baseline likable and theoretically dateable.
Hmm. So how about you, Heraclius?
Yeah,
Was
that's
you would also go
Yeah.
with her? Okay.
no, 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 no. I don't know if I go with her.
Do you want to hear?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's you know what? Screw it. I'm going to say Azalin just so I can marry into the great family and start running an empire. Sure, we'll go with that.
All right. What about you, Bagandam?
I'm gonna go with the twins.
Hmm. For
Obvious choice.
for the threesome.
Yeah,
Obvious choice.
yeah.
Two is better than one, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I also like the design, and I mean, from what we do see, they're quite energetic and playful and fun. I'm like, oh, these two are quite nice. I like this.
Oh yeah, you can see yeah, there's a cute scene where they come along, and there's like this one episode where it's funny. Tyler at the start, everyone sort of dis all the women sort of despise him because he's responsible, whatnot, or very much just have like low level contempt for him. And then as he brings them to victory after victory, and he sort of continues his style, like about halfway, like every there's like this whole thing where every woman is trying to confess his love to them, whereas whereas Tyler is more concerned with hiding the porn tape that the bunch of guys loaned to him.
Yeah.
Wiles.
Or rather saving it from getting destroyed because
Yeah.
the crew would get angry with him, I guess, for it. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess Tyler's attitude towards the women, like he's sort of a lecher, but not in a like
He's not a
pathetic.
master
Passive
Roshi.
way.
Hmm? Sorry, one. What did you say, Baganda?
Oh wait, yeah, he is. I'll let Heracles go next, but like he is a bit of a lecture, but he's not like say like a Master Roshi or an Issei Hyodo like type. Like he isn't like actively going for it. It's more like, oh, this is cute. Oh, that's pretty hot. You know, like he's a bit more like casual about it.
Right, right. He's not. He's just a quote unquote honest with his desires, which I guess one of the things which I one of the things which people said that if you accept that Tyler was a genius and not a fool, well then like he suddenly seems like a very unsavory fellow because he was kind of deceiving. Because if you think that he was a genius, he was kind of deceiving everyone essentially while pretending to be this honest guy.
I mean, in the show itself, there's like a few moments where you could think that, and a part of me wants to think that as well. But a part of me thinks like yeah, I think it's mostly luck, but I definitely think he's more clued on than you would expect. But I definitely don't think he's like I don't think genius is really a word we can apply.
Right, right. I mean, like at the start, like before we started recording, I think you said that in the OVA there was a moment where like he asked a character like, well, would you prefer to me like when a character asked him why is he like so cheerful all the time, he replied with some saying that, well, would you prefer me to be harsh? like to be the harsh all the time. Like we sort of looked like he sounded like at least that he a little bit like maybe it's the cheerfulness might be a little bit faked at some points or whatever.
I mean, you definitely see that in the show. Like when that admiral dies, like he's just so like depressed, or like before that big battle, around the end of the TV shows, where he's like checking up on all his crew. Like that tells me that there's definitely like I would say there's a lot more. I think he's a lot more clued on than you would suspect. I don't think he's a complete idiot. I think he's a lot more clued on than you would suspect, right? But I don't think he's a genius.
Right, right. Basically the way that I understand it is that like he basically understands the situation, but um, basically how bad it is, but he usually prefers to be cheerful or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. If I was to use like a D&D analogy, right? He's got like maybe like 13 to 12 like wisdom and intelligence. Like he's above average. He's fairly good at reading people. It's just like being goofy and stuff like that. It helps, like if you want to be really cynical about it, it helps people lower the defenses around you. If you want to be really cynical, if we're going with like the genius angle, right? Like acting goofy and all that shit. That's a great way for people to like drop their guard around you. It's like, oh, this guy's very jovial and witty and stuff, and then out of nowhere he's like MK Ultra samurai badass man, out of nowhere, like completely out of left field. But like for me, like Captain Tyler is like, if say he was a D&D character, he'd probably have maybe a 13 or 14 wisdom. He's pretty in tune with the world around him, and maybe like a 12 or 13 intelligence. Like he's above average in intelligence. Like he's smart enough to know what's going on, but not smart enough, to like completely weasel himself out of every single situation. If that makes any sense.
Right, right. So I guess I'll have to go. When it comes to best girl, I'll probably go with Yuriko. I found out the least annoying, and she had. Now I guess obviously the series was pushing for her. In terms of character design, however, I thought that Kion Wahim, or however you say her name, the other, I don't know, would you call her, uh, Bunny Girl or whatever. Her and not it's not Bunny Girl, that's not the right term, but like I believe that there's a word
Bridge
for
bunnies.
no, there's a word for when a TV series kind of makes a point of having a bunch of cute girls in the deck or whatever you want to call it of a ship.
Yeah, bridge bunnies.
Bridge
Yeah,
bunnies.
Bridge
There you
Bunny.
go. There you go. Yeah. I
Yeah, I
like.
said that before.
Yeah. Oh, you said that. Good.
Yeah,
Um.
I said bridge bunnies.
Right. So that's what I meant. Her design is better, and also she
Yeah, she looks pretty cool. Like most of like all the female characters in the show are actually quite attractive.
Oh yeah, and none of them are hyper bitchy or anything like that. No.
Yeah, all of them are like likable. It's just like most of these girls, like if I met these chicks in real life, I'd be like, oh, these are pretty cool girls. They're pretty cool. Nice to meet you. Like they're attractive, nice. Yeah, pretty decent.
yeah. And the other character who I thought had a good design, but still but more generic would be Shia Haas, um uh, the elf chick with the red hair. Um. And yeah, and a decent personality. I think I think it's implied, or maybe I just read into it too much, but again, we can't read the source material, so we don't know that Shia Shia Haas and Yamamoto might be a thing. I, or at least that's I don't know. I kind of felt that would be uh, again, but we don't know. Okay, what else is there to talk about? Um, do you want to talk about any of the other characters that we haven't talked about yet? Um,
Mm, I guess one character I kind of like is Dom, who was basically like the second in command for the I forgot the opposing Empire's call, but he's kind of like second in command
Yeah,
to the
Captain
Queen.
Dom's pretty cool.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, he's all right. I mean, when he took command at the end, again, it's sort of like oh, there was no way that he could know what Tyler was planning. Um, for the episode, you know, uh, the longest day in space or whatever it was called. I don't know if we should spoil it. It's a decent episode, and I mean, were any of you guys able to predict that what would happen there, or did you? Because I mean, if you were, I imagine it would feel a lot less tense. But the first time that I watched that episode, I couldn't predict it, so it felt pretty nice.
Yeah, that salute scene was pretty good.
Yeah, as well as seeing.
And it was a pretty tense scene when like even when I was watching that show, like it was a little tense, a little bit. I was like, and then I remember, oh yeah, that's right, that's what's gonna happen. But like it was still a bit tense. Like he's like, right, ships, all ships, move forward. Dawn's like, oh, move forward. You know, it reminds me of like Reinhardt and Yang Li again. You know, it's like, oh, Sugoi Yang Li, you've counted right. Time for my counter. You know, like you're watching these two geniuses fighting each other using ships and billions of lives to prove who's the best.
Right, right. So, are you guys aware that there was like a what do you call it? Those short anime series, those anime series where each episode is like 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, the specials and that type of shit.
I'm not sure if specials is the right word. But there was a 12 episode series with each episode 5 minutes, which came out in 2017, which was sort of sequel to um, Tyler, set in the far future. But it was more
Yeah,
still.
there's actually one of the books that says something like 40 years in the future or something like that. It's possibly like side story material.
Yeah, I'll read the synopsis. Yeah, yeah, it says it's based on Hitoshi Yoshiaka's the most irresponsible man in space novels. Yes, and so here's the synopsis. It is long after the United Planets has declined and the Empire has been destroyed. Oh, spoilers. Uh, um,
No, Azaleen.
People have scattered all over the galaxy and lead peaceful lives on various planets. Banjo Tyler, I think it's a cute girl called Banjo Tyler.
Huh.
Works. I believe maybe we can say. Let's have a look at her character design. Maybe we can say who she got, who the. Oh, no, it's actually a guy, and he looks more like the child of Tyler and Yuriko, in my opinion. Looking at the character design. Anyhow, but it might not even be the child, but just a distant
Yeah, great
descendant.
great
Yeah,
grandson or something like that. You know,
yeah.
that type of shiz.
So Banjo Tyler works in garbage disposal above the atmosphere of one of these planets when he comes across a robot ship and finds a girl frozen in ice within. Suddenly, forces that are after the girl begin to activate all throughout the galaxy, as it is revealed that the girl is actually Goza, the 168, the harbinger of the galaxy's doom. So basically, yeah, the girl looks a lot like
Yeah, this is
Hazelin.
far in the future because I think Azaleen was like the 13th or 17th or something, so this is far, far into the future.
Banjo and Goza set out on a journey to revive the United Planets, but nothing goes as planned. And I don't think there's much story either because it's just a short episode series. Uh, um, yeah. So yeah, so Yeah, I think each episode is 4 minutes. Right. That's a.
That's a
Hmm. So, did you feel like after Admiral Hannah died, did you feel like it made sense for Tyler to be like to have that this epiphany that like people die, like he didn't know
I
that.
I mean, if you want to go lean into him being a genius type shit, I really you could say that's like the mask coming off.
Mm,
I mean, I always got the impression he was very close with that admiral, and
Yeah, that as
so
well.
he like every time he went to Earth, he spent time with them. So that all of that didn't remotely surprise me. It seemed quite natural.
but then
The-
why did he leave? Why do you think that he left the force, the military for a while?
Well, like he said, he follows what he wants to do. I mean, and military life was
And
certainly
like he's
getting.
depressed because his fucking friend's dead, so he's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna take a breather for like 5 minutes.
Hmm.
I don't know. It seemed to me like
Perfectly reasonable.
I think he intended to leave the military for good, but then changed his
Yeah,
mind.
I got that impression. Yeah.
Mm. So yeah, it kind of felt like he just felt like it. So he did it. I guess, which I guess is the way that he always acted. So I guess it makes sense in that sense. What do you think, George? Why do you think Tyler decided to leave the force?
Well, I would say one part because, well, he kind of blamed himself for not being there when the admiral died, and also to in Tyler's case, I think he just when he realized, oh, the military, everyone I know I care about is probably gonna die. I figured, I'm just going to leave the military so I don't have to see any more of my friends or people I care about die.
Yeah, I mean, uh, did you guys feel that the ending of him, well, just joining the military again, kind of cheapened the whole thing because, oh well, look, we are back to the status quo, like nothing really changed. It's yeah, it's
I think it's also the idea that he enjoyed being the captain of the Soyokaze. Like he didn't want to. I mean, in the OVA, he says like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be Emerald and lead the like." In the beginning first episode, he's like, "Oh yeah, if you don't recruit me, you could have been missing on talent. I could be like an Emerald one day and shit like that." But I really think he grew really attached to like the Soyokaze and the crew, and just traveling space and doing nothing for the most part. Like, I really think he got really attached to that, and I think he's just kind of depressed that like a part of that is now gone and dead. You know, every time they return from port, he'd go see his friend the Admiral, and that guy's gone.
okay. So, how would you rate this series, George?
I would rate a strong 8 out of 10.
Okay. How about you, Heraclius?
Truthfully, I went in with impressions or whatnot, but I'd only give it a 6 out of 10. There's a lot of things I can appreciate about it, but the it's one of those shows where you do go in knowing every episode. Um, and to be honest, Tyler's whole view of the world always irked me a little bit, so I never got that attached.
Mm-hmm. I see. I guess like I mean if you I've heard people say something similar about Onizuka as well. By the way, that
Yeah, I can see that. Having seen clips of Onizuka, I get the feeling that Onizuka he plays the fool, but he's deadly serious underneath.
Uh,
Uh,
I will
I
tell you, as a person who's read the manga and some of the side story shit, yeah,
yeah. Whereas that is certainly not the case with Tyler. He's a fool through and through.
Hmm. Um. Yeah. So one criticism which I've seen.
Hey, you didn't ask for my rating.
I'll ask for yours as well. So one criticism which I've seen thrown against Onizuka is that, which might be applied to Tyler, is that, well, like all of these quote unquote morals and way of being that you see, well, this is just a feel good series at the end of the day. So you can't take any of it seriously, and um, so because of that, it kind of feels like, oh, the series is kind of trying to deceive you into a false sense of security, feeling good about it. But because none of it would really work in real life if you try to do it, essentially. Um,
I don't know. Like truth is stranger than fiction. I mean, in Onizuka's case, I mean, yeah, he's like incredibly lucky, but like he like if we're talking like more realistic, right? I mean, this is a really passionate teacher who goes above and beyond like the beyond the call of duty for his job, and actually tries to actually not only like just not he doesn't teach the students, he teaches his students with a capital T.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what made me kind of think about it was that that little bit from the wiki, which said that this might have been inspired by this other series about a salaryman who gets ahead by just being an idiot. And obviously that's like that's not real. That's just a satire for actual salarymen to watch, and I don't know, feel good or whatever.
You would be surprised. Like I've heard some stories of where there's fuckery going on. Like you would be surprised.
All right then. What is your rating for this series?
I'd give Captain Tyler probably like a mid 7 out of 10. Overall, I think it's a fairly good show. Definitely a staple of the '90s. It's pretty funny. It's just kind of like middle across the board. Like I think it's a fairly good show, and I think if you like space opera or comedies, or just want to try something from the '90s, I definitely think Captain Tyler is at least worth checking out.
Hmm. I would give it a 7.8 out of 10, because it's almost an 8, but I don't know. There's something missing. Something like I would say that something like Garan Lagan is an actual 8. Um, um, and I don't think it's because of the message or anything like that in my case, but it's more like yeah, there's nothing special, I would say. Um, um, it's a fine comedy, made me laugh. Um, not that much this time, but I watched it in a hurry for this stream.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly good show. It's decent. It's like, I mean, at worst, it's like average, but like at best, it's actually fairly good with some of the little character development shit and stuff. So I think it's a right show.
Right. Um. Okay. Okay. Any other interesting characters?
No.
No.
Nope.
All right then. I'm all right with ending the stream as now, if nobody
Yeah,
else has any.
I'm good. Like it's getting like to 2 a.m. and I've got like tabletop shit to do in the morning and shit. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Um. So do what you want. The way that you want